Are you ready to go over a bunch of stuff and have to jump around and it be random and talk about a bunch of things on the Dakar? That's what we're gonna do. The layers are peeled back. What we're gonna do, plumbing wise, is we're gonna, so Kyle with CFI, Kyle is a Lambo twin turbo guy, or just, that's his specialty. So this thing, we obviously have that V10 back here. We have a twin turbo package. That's like his bread and butter. So what we're gonna do is work with Kyle. He's also building the V12 for us for a different car. We're gonna work with Kyle, and he's also got Zach. He's from G&J. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar, like in SoCal with G&J Aircraft. They have a really awesome walk-in shop that's got like aircraft surplus. Like you can geek on that stuff in there. It's a fun way to burn time. Zach's gonna plumb this thing with Kyle up there. There's a lot of things for me that I don't need to figure out here, and that don't almost make sense for us to learn it. It's just such a unique thing that it turns into like a pride thing, where I need to check an ego on how much do I really need to control and do. And I think Ryan's talked about it too, like having Zach and Kyle handle the plumbing and the engine stuff. There's a lot of that engine, like that factory V10. There's so many sensors and things that are going to get block offs and not be used. And when you have someone that's a specialist in that, like, use the specialist. So we're going to get this as good as we can. Like, we're going to do all the small hard line, like we've already started, a lot of stuff to like on the trailing arms and everything. And then it's going to go up to CFI. It's going to stay there. We're going to take the engine out. We're going to go through the engine. Kyle's going to build a special surge tank for that. He's going to put kind of his touch on things. He's going to eliminate things we don't need, and then Zach is going to go there and he's going to hard line this thing into oblivion. We're going to, we stressed with him to do it like a show, like a show car or hot rod, just as much of a win you can get with hard line everywhere. Custom billet, hold downs for things, bulkhead connectors, everything. So we're going through this process of some big stuff, but a lot of little things right now. One of the things that's down in here, the trailing arms are on. One of the things with the trailing arms was the inner pivot. We juiced that inner pivot to an 1.5 inch spherical bearing. So there's a huge pivot, a uniball in the middle that wasn't there. And what that did is that had to dig into the bulkhead quite a bit, where we had to scoop out some of the bulkhead. And then when we were in there, I went ahead and I reinforced the crap out of all of the pivots in the back. One of the classic moves with a sand car, or like a buggy, I guess more just buggy, independent rear suspension, is they take side hits and they want to pull the outer pivots. They want to pull like the bushing or the heim joint or whatever out. They always damage it. And then they punch the insides. And so there's usually a lot more damage on the outside, but what we did is we reconfigured the inner pivots, replated everything, made it look like it's supposed to be there, then attacked the outside pivot, doubled that up, and then put more strengthening in there, and then matched all the design language to keep that cohesive. So we'll look in there. Why is all this blown apart right now? Hi, Hank. Hi. We got into, there's a different realm here. It's not a sand car. It is not an off-road car. It is a 2,500 horsepower V10 with twin turbos. There's things that make this a little more complicated than a normal build. Like build pre-runner, me put pump backup pump and filters. You know, like it's not like that. This fuel cell, we're gonna go into a big tangent right now about the fuel cell. The fuel cell we built, just like a buggy, where it kind of lives in the car under the seats. It's pretty typical. It's like the space you get. And it was this big T thing, this whole sub-assembly that doesn't have panels on it. You can kind of chase the tube connectors down. Those, you know, that part comes out, the seat mounts attached to that. They're floating in here, but the whole thing's built where you put the fuel cell in first, and then you build all the layers into the car, and that includes like upholstery. You know, this whole thing, when we get to that stage, we're gonna, just like this, we're gonna talk about all the upholstery in here and how it is. And that fuel cell is gonna be so buried that if you needed to service it because it has a bladder, you're pulling the upholstery out, and then you're pulling all of this area out, and then you're having to take the dash out and everything, because the way that thing was shaped, it was this big old gnarly T. And you had to do, like, it was one of those spooky things, you know what I'm talking about, where you only get one way. So it's like, you're like, start here, and then you like get in here, and then it goes through here, and then it does something crazy like that. Because we maximized the space we could fit to get through the door opening, because the windshield wasn't gonna be enough, especially with an intrusion bar. So what does that lead? That leads to Ryan has an expectation of having different mapping for fuel on here, meaning he, you know, different octane levels, also running an E85. E85 this is where I fall short on a lot of my knowledge, but I've had experience with E85, and it can be pretty bad when you leave it in fuel tanks, fuel cells, cans. Even when we had cans of it, it leaves a gunk and a residue, and if you're not constantly either running it through something or cleaning it out, it can deteriorate some stuff. A lot of bladders, you know, not just the bladder, but the foam that goes inside, it will cause issues, because if you don't clean it out or you don't run it all the way through your tank, it'll, you know, start to prematurely wear on the foam, or it'll just create gunk. Ryan's expectation with driving this is it's not like, it's going to be like a daily thing. He's going to drive this thing, you know, places, freeway, you know, travel around in it. And then he might park it, and then he might be going out of state for a week, or he might be at one of his events for, you know, 2 weeks or something, and it's gonna sit. So we don't wanna have a maintenance chart on this thing where we're having to monitor the fuel like that. This is my big, long, drawn out story. So where we went with it first is we went to, okay, well, we can talk to, you know, Harman doesn't warranty their bladders because they won't last as long if they're 85, and then you're gonna have to replace the foam. How are we gonna have to replace the foam? This thing's gonna be so buried in here, X, Y, Z. Then it turns into, okay, well, we don't have enough slosh. We can run a bladder in the fuel cell with no foam. We'll run a surge tank, external surge tank. That is a large thing. What this wants is 4-gallon surge tank. So it's almost the size of the dry sump tank back here. So we have to put a provision and amount for that back here. And then what you want is 2 pumps, staged pumps, one that's always on, and then one comes on with the tune and adds more fuel throughout the power. So you have 2 staged pumps as a pre, and then you have a post set of pumps. So now you're running 4 pumps, you're running 4 filters. Then the pumps that we're running are gnarly, so they want to have more alternator instead of just the 1 DC power that we have. So then we're thinking about how we're gonna run a secondary alternator. The secondary alternator doesn't fit back there, so we're gonna have to run an extra pulley and a drive shaft that goes and runs from the back of the car and runs the thing front, and then it's on a separate bracket that's running into a belt with an alternator as a secondary. You seeing where we're going here? Holy shit. So the best plan of attack here is to reconstruct this, build this thing into 3 tanks. There's a middle tank, that's the longer one that fills that trapezoid. 2 baffles in there so it doesn't let the slosh happen. These tanks are so low here, no damage is gonna happen with slosh. And on top of that, we're separating it into 3 pieces. So 1 middle, 1 side, another side, the passenger side. All of these are connected by a Vangeance, like a Wiggin style clamp, you know, with a hard line in there. So, you know, there'll be a bulkhead, they're 3/16 aluminum, and then they'll have a pickup where they're gonna connect to each other. And then that passenger side behind the rear seat we had an appendage drawn up that adds more mass to it, probably puts a couple more gallons in it, but that gives the opportunity to run what CFI puts in their race cars, which is this drop-in surge tank plus fuel pump that's all programmable. It's a big, gnarly unit. So what we did is we redrew the middle. We cut the old fuel cell in 3 pieces, drew it, made provisions for where they're going to tie into each other, kept this one the same size, and then we constructed. If you look over here, there's rear sheet metal is cut out of there, and there's a big camel hump that comes up where that tank, that the pump is going to drop in from the top with like a billet adapter plate. Best part about that is we can have a trim plate in here and we can service that thing no problem. We don't have to take the upholstery out. We can literally like unbutton one panel and we can access that from behind the passenger seat, and we're good. And this thing doesn't have to come out of here. So that alleviates all the accessory pumps. It gets us that one big one. That's it. That's all we're going to need. We can put our filters in here just like we need to. The thing is serviceable. It gets rid of any of the problems with the E85. We can have drain plugs on this stuff. We can clean out the fuel tanks, all from under the belly pan. So we took a step back, so we didn't have to take 4 steps forward with all of that other stuff. And this gets us into a greater plan of attack here. This was one of the things that we needed to figure out. That was like the gray area, the shifting. It's a 5-speed Alden synchromesh gearbox, H pattern. So a typical manual car. The one thing we knew is the output linkage for the shifter or the gearbox. If you can see it down there, see the black rod sticking out. If you were to run cable, or not cable, but like some kind of linkage to get up to here, you have to do a pretty significant jog up to the shifter. On top of that, that thing is diving right into the bulkhead. So we needed to come up with a solution, and that was something I was stressing for a while. Oh, I gotta let this thing hang. I didn't know what, we left this triangle open. We didn't put sheet metal here because I thought, okay, there might be like some balls out linkage. There might have to be a cantilever system. Originally I was thinking like tie rods off the shifter, but part of the shifter is a rotational thing. So it twists the gearbox, and then there's one that puts it in and out. So it's 2 different mechanisms, and we'd have to engineer that into tie rod style stuff where there might be like some kind of cam mechanism, like it's an engineering thing. And I'm like, dude, is that worth doing all that? What's the solution? I talked to enough people, and I think Weddell was the final culprit, as far as they're like, there's a guy that makes these cable systems and he makes a shifter for it, and it's the same as a Porsche gearbox that he uses. And that's the solution. So what we have is this guy Jim, I forget what his company is, but he does a lot of the seat outfits these for Porsches. It's the same deal. So this is all of his cable system. This bracket is what bolts to the chassis here, that holds one cable. The provisions here are so you can fit a wrench in here. And then there's another bracket here. This interesting little piece bolts to the gearbox in 3 locations. And then same thing, it has a sliver in here to tighten with a wrench. Because what we did is when we started building all these, they're in the gut of the car. So the things where you think you can get a wrench in now while you're building it, you can't, because you're going to put the coolers in, and then you're going to put tin work in, and then the only access point that you have is when you drop the belly pan and you're working from under the car and you need to get in there with something. So we engineered all the shapes and the design so you're working from the one spot where you can get your hand in there without having to take much crap off to make adjustments to the shifting. The way that this shifting works, really good instructions, really good customer service on this thing, but the way it works with adjustment is you get it. So right now we had to do a mock-up phase where all, crazy style mock-up, angle iron clamps, all this stuff, and spent maybe 10 hours getting this adjusted where it rows through all the gears and it goes into reverse. And there's just the right ratio where you set these things in place, where you're not just running off the adjustment of the rod ends in here, but you're running on where it's pulling from perfectly to get those angles right. So we got that, and then we built the brackets to that. What this is a progressively refined shifting mechanism. So, you know, the first thing is you set up the brackets, you get it to where it gets into all the gears, and then what happens is when the car is running, then we adjust it again and we start fine tuning it. And then the synchros and the gearbox, they start to break in, and then you fine tune it more, and then it gets it really good. The whole thing with the manual gearbox is for the driving experience. You know, sequentials are great for a race application. To drive them on the street, I think they're a novelty experience. I've driven sequentials on the street. Really cool. For that being a car that you know you're going to get into and drive to, you know, Angeles Crest Highway, or you're going to go to a car meet or something like that, or just you're going out on a date for a night. But, you know, if you're sitting wanting to drive this thing every day, that's a shitty experience. They're clunky and finicky and in traffic, and it's just a handful. And, you know, I remember, like, I've had a manual car since I was 23, and you know, I taught my son how to drive a manual, and even the earlier sand cars, when they first started putting like North Star 32 valve V8s in them, there's an experience you get from being able to just bang through gears. It's the same as a hot rod, like you just the romp and like, and you just slower shifting, but this grabbing and downshifting and heel toe, and that driving experience is what we want in this thing. So, you know, 2,500 horsepower, you're gonna get that power however you need, and it's not a strip car. It's not a Texas mile car. We're not counting milliseconds on shifting. We're counting miles per mile as far as the experience here, and that manual experience is what we want. So this has been a huge part to figure out. That was like a cloudy area, at least for me, and my team got it dialed now. So next step here with this, we're just going to kind of cover a bunch of things, and then next time we update, I'm going to come back and show you what we have for progress. Next step is this goes in the center, you know, center console goes on here. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to clock at, we're going to scan this. We're going to scan the center console. We're going to scan the data of the shifter in comparison to the center console. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just each scan, we're going to do each position, each gear. And then what I'm going to have Josh do, Josh Frey has been an incredible dude to work with on this project. One of the most talented guys, and he does take on freelance. I always try to hold him down. I'm like, I got enough for you full time. Just keep doing our stuff. But he's helped. He's got it. And so what we're going to run here is we're going to have another mechanism on top of this that, you know, we're going to have all the data for the throws, and we'll put some adjustment in here. But we're going to have a spring, like a spring and ball style mechanism where this goes in, it goes, and it clicks, and it snaps a ball bearing, and it's going to be like gated shifter, you know, just like a Murcielago, you know, or an old Ferrari or something. But we want this experience where it's like this click, this like mechanical assurance of the gear engaging, and that's going to be like the cherry on top with this, and I'm super excited about that. So having this be a 3-pedal car like that, it's just that much better. So this thing's closer than I'd think. It looks blown apart right now, but you know, when you chunk all the big stuff out of here, we're in a good spot. It's kind of a big tangent. So I think what we'll do is just, we'll run this as one. I wish I could incorporate the model files for this stuff, but this is, right now, that's at laser, getting cut and getting broke, and then we'll get this thing assembled. Next update, we should probably start talking about the rear pivots, talk about the sway bar, talk about the panels, limit straps, and some of the body. So, until next time, guys, thank you.